This is my big swim baiting rod. This is a 703 SF. I fish with these glide baits a lot and these Z-Man minnows that are super duper popular. Oh, big boil. There he is. Oh, he's a monster. Take it. Grab it, buddy. Grab it, grab it, grab it. God, I hope you saw that. It's so exciting fishing like this. Right there. Oh, there's one. Yeah, I got it. Yes. Oh, brilliant stuff. Oh. It's smaller than your regular one, but that you'll get on one of these Crossfires. But that aerial display was just brilliant. It's completely, his mouth's completely missed the hooks. He's definitely gone for it. But it's the assist hooks on the back that have hooked it. They're super catchy, these hooks. Can make all the difference when you're chasing these flathead on the surface if you're using super sharp assist hooks on the back. And he's just caught just down the back near his side flare fins. I'm just gonna see if I can show you, but they usually go mental. There you go. Look at that. I've been meaning to do this for a while. I want to show you what's on my boat when I go flathead fishing. Come and take a look. So I've got my outboard and my mink coder up the front, obviously, and then I've got these rod racks down the side. I'm going to take you through just the rods that I run generally, and then some of the lures and that sort of thing that I like to have on board when I'm fishing for these flathead. And like anyone, I've always got way too much gear than what I really need, but I'll take you through. Well, I'll start with the lures and then I'll take you through what I like to throw them on. So I like to be fishing for these flathead with, at the moment, I'm using way bigger gear than what you probably would expect if you haven't seen any of my videos of late, but I fish with these glide baits a lot, and so I've got, that's one of my favourites, a Real IU by Lucky Craft. This is one of Blair Chilton's big glide baits, and then I've got a couple others here that are rigged I'll show you in a sec. Always got a few of these big Crossfire lures in, and these big slapsticks are one of my favourites to throw for flathead as well. And I'll throw these early morning, I'll throw these if there's a little bit too much tide movement for a glide bait later in the day, and I can fish these anywhere up to about 5 or 6 feet if I'm chasing them on the shallows. And what else have I got here? I've always got a couple of spools of just different, like leader if it gets really clear or I need to downsize my leader. I've got some fluorocarbon there. I've got a couple of different spools that are rigged either fluoro straight through or a little bit heavier of a braid with a heavier leader, so that I can just change it straight out. And I've always got heavy hooks in for these bigger baits, and then a good selection of just smaller trolling things if I end up trolling for flathead with some really sharp, chemically sharpened hooks. I think makes a big difference when you're trolling with these tiny little lures. So I think they're decoys, S25 trebles, and then they're little owners as well, and they're all super sharp. They just help with your hookup rate. So I like to throw those things around and make sure that I've got good hooks on them, these little small profiled little trolling lures. And I've definitely got a good selection of plastics in, and plastics are probably the most consistent way to go. If once that bigger bait bite period has slowed down for me, I'll tend to go and throw some plastics. And I really like some of these Domeki Jig Heads. They've got a really sharp hook on the end, and then just an eye and a great sort of attention to detail head on it that sort of sits the plastic up when it goes and hits the bottom. It doesn't lie flat on the bottom sort of thing. So I like to use those, and I just got these out of my tackle club box, but you can use any sort of paddle tail plastic. These armour shads are great. They got a great finish on them, and good little paddle tails, some small profiles in the 3-inch as well is probably what I throw the most. Those and these Z-Man minnows that are super duper popular, those as well. So there's a really quick look at the baits that I like to throw. I might go through my tackle box for Flathead in another video, but I'll just show you the rods and stuff that I've got in. So this is my big swim baiting rod. This is it's a 795 SB by Dobbins in the Fury series, and that allows me to throw those really big swim baits and glide baits that are just fantastic for great big flathead. So yeah, they're a lot heavier, and you kind of need a bigger rod to do it. I've done it before on a little bit lighter rod, but you just sort of like very slow looping cast, and it's not great for a rod if you're throwing a way oversized bait, unless you sort of know what you're doing, I suppose. But I've got that in, and that's for my bigger swim baits and glide baits. The other rod that I've got in that I can throw the smaller ones on is this is like a 663C, again by Dobbins, and I just run my Carados that I use for jack fishing. And when I'm throwing these big baits, I use 20-pound line, which is probably overkill for flathead, but these big baits are expensive, and I don't tend to have a problem with my hookup and getting some numbers of these bigger fish. So that's the two bait casting setups that I've got. My third rod that I probably use the most early morning, I run with one of these big Crossfires on it, and this is just a 2,500 size Stratic, and this is a 703 SF spinning reel, and this thing's fantastic. It's got it's a nice strong reel. It's rod. It's fairly long, so I can get long casts with these surface lures, which makes a big difference. And it's just a beautiful setup with 10-pound braid on it. This is like Siglon Sunline, and then I run 20-pound leader on there as well. But that's probably the most common casting setup that I use, and I can even fish with diving lures, big diving lures or medium-sized diving lures on that as well. The other two little setups that I've got, these are my little trolling setups, and these are super cheap, and that's probably one of the best things about chasing flathead is that you don't need awesome high-end gear for the most part to get onto it and have a lot of fun. That's why kids can get into it. And this is all it is, just little 1,000 size spinning outfits on like a 3 to 6 kilo estuary rod, and they're fairly soft in the tip. This one's a 6.3 or a 6.6 it is, and the other one's this Fluga Treon is a 7-foot rod. And I just run like tiny little profiled stuff like that, jack deep. That's a Bass Day, a little shading 55 that is, but both of them got really super sharp hooks. So they're my trolling setups, and I like them because they're fairly soft in the tip, so that you're not pulling fish out if you're trolling, especially if you're going quick with the tide, and a little flatty comes up and takes it and tries to turn on you. You're not just popping it with a heavier rod. So there's, how many is there? There's 6 rods in here, and they just fit down the side. And then what else have I got that I can show you? I've got this stuff here that I run my little nail clippers. That just helps me tidy up the little tags on my lures. These are okay if you're keeping the flathead. If you want to return them, I suggest you use a glove. And I've just got a cheap glove. You don't need anything too special, but it's leather, because the little flathead's teeth go nuts, and even the big ones are even worse, and they can bite down on you. So I use leather ended gloves, and then just split ring pliers. These things are fantastic, with little cutters there as well. So for the most part, that gets me around on the flats, and gets a whole range of approaches to my flathead fishing sorted. And generally I'll fish early morning with those bigger baits, and as the day progresses I might do a little bit of trolling and then break it up if I'm fishing patchy weed and drop off specifically with those little jigs. So hopefully that helps you if you're looking to get into some flathead fishing or change up your game a little bit. Gives you a pointer on just some of the options, and it's a lot of fun, and having a few different rods for different situations I think just really helps you with your preparation when you're out on the water. So if you've got some gear that you've seen or that you haven't seen on my boat that you reckon's really helpful, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Just put it in the comments, and yeah, it'd be nice to hear what you guys use as well. What sort of rods you like to fish with those bigger baits especially. And I'll see you in the next video.